Y'all breathing. Better niggas not far away, I believe it. Looking in the mirror, staring at the mirror. That shit's silly. A new vision, staring at the world from a different angle. Positive attitude, but I'm still gangster. Grown man shit. I hope you get the hint. Selling drugs will make you a man, but it can make you rich. Talking your guts, wearing your heart, but you're only your bitch. Take time and think, damn, this will make sense. I'm a builder, to keep old niggas from drowning. OGs told me to walk softly. Keep your eyes open, young nigga, be cautious. Don't trust these slime, my old brother, dirt up off you. My brother, dirt up off you. He kept walking. I keep my business to myself, you got the streets talking. I'm on my music cues while you niggas sleepwalking. Keep sleepwalking. Black hawk streets ain't just talking. Niggas is whispering with me like a fisherman. Very steady listening, they reeling in my niggas, get them trapped, got they feeling them. Fit the profile of your skin, tinted with melanin. My hands have been telling them. Niggas ain't listening, take the box, you missing it. Niggas get the missing when they ruffling up your wrist in it. Ship you off the prison in a hole like a pigeon in. Ain't nobody visiting, living like some midgets in. How many men are feminine, social like some women in. Fuck if I'm offending them, it's time to be PC. The game's getting greasy. Wow. Every time I look, they ain't danger in my species. Man, I'm fighting like greasy. Problem for the opposition, I'm fast for the heart. Stomping out the competition. My name ain't Joe, but I got a proposition. Game is gold, the way they take to stop the mission. What different me, the same you. Things will stay the same, things will change. Don't hate me, nigga, hate your game. He's a man that's trying to change. A different me, the same you. Things will stay the same, things will change. Don't hate me, nigga, hate your game. Have you ever felt like you were just tired of all the games, the stress, the drama, the lies? You be wishing you could turn it to a G4 and just fly away from all the nonsense. Thinking about a higher pay, looking for a brighter day. Makes me wanna fly away. Hoping I can find my way. Nothing more than I can say. I just wanna fly away. Fly away. My life should be edited in Photoshop. Photos for a big click. Never miss a photo op. Always in the limelight. Even if I fall back, stand on my own too. Even if I fall flat, if I have to fall back, I'ma get my spot again. Niggas see me coming, be like, not damn, not again. Build to the MO, and you know my MO is either the Southeast or the Caliente. I'm holding the crown, king like Kente. When I drop the top on that GT Bentley, listen to the haters talk. I don't care what them say. I'm a hot head. I'm Mucho Caliente. It wasn't me Kente. Have those muchachos. Moving at the border with the cheese from my nachos. When I'm calling on my vato. Cause I'm about to dust the game like a snot nose. Thinking about a higher pay. Looking for a brighter day. Makes me wanna fly away. Hoping I can find my way. Nothing more than I can say. I just wanna fly away. Fly away. It's a brand new year. Tell the industry it's a mob nigga here. Tell the industry it's a mob nigga here. I still share it for my niggas that love their life. Now I ride on broke, neck full of ice, lap full of ammo, feeling like Rambo. Pocket full of necklace, I can make your girl suck me up. I pulled up in Cadillac trucks, hopped out stuck and my squad big money. Better watch a chick, I can tell that she want me. I hit the best till I nigga bill money. Now I got bill money, thanks bill money. Thinking about a higher pay, looking for a brighter day. Makes me wanna fly away. Hoping I can find my way. Nothing more than I can say. I just wanna fly away. Fly away. racks and reap the cash crop. I'm so good, you never catch me in the bad spot. When I put up 11-6-4 and make that ass drop. See, all I ever wanted to do was smile. And your girl, all she ever wanted to do was smile. And all I ever wanted to do was hit the ball. Pull up in a G-Rock truck and buy it out. I be finger on the dough, watch my paper flow. While you cooking up them bricks, I watch your paper choke. My big roll, nigga, I watch my paper smoke. Boy, you're nothing funny. I watch your paper choke.
Oh man, so yes sir, yes ma'am, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the building. It's Dirty Laundry Media. It's your boy Bill Money. Just decided to hop on here. Been putting this one off for a little while. Been busy. But hey, it's raining cats and dogs right now, so nothing is moving. I'm in the house. I've eaten dinner, and I'm having some libations. Yeah, that's pretty good. I need a little more Henny. Yeah, hold on. I need a little more Hennessy. Yeah. All right. Let's see if I can get this mic fixed up. Think the audio's coming through pretty clearly. But again, the topic for tonight's live is benign neglect And benign neglect is still official policy for Native Blacks. And I wanted to also start with this video. This was a recent town hall meeting in which Jim Clyburn, who is the House Majority Whip, was asking questions about reparations for American descendants of slavery. And this was by a brother named Cato Amir. I am Cato Amir on Twitter. You guys can follow him. And let's just get just lay the foundation. You know, they holler and they scream for us to vote. They make the most ignorant overtures in order to entice us to vote. Dancing to the polls, booties to the polls, where they use strippers. And I don't see them doing these things to other groups to get them to vote. The things that I see them doing for other groups to get them to vote is to listen to and address their issues and to offer an exchange for their vote. But when it comes to Native Blacks, and I can only speak to the Native Black experience because that is the only one that I've lived. But I can tell you, the policy of benign neglect, in which it is even hard to broach the discussion of anything specific, policy-wise or legislation-wise, for Native Blacks. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip of this exchange between Cato Amir and Representative Jim Clyburn of South Carolina, 6th District, I believe. But whatever district Jim Clyburn is the head of, it is probably, I think, the 6th worst or poorest district in the United States of America. I'm going to look that up, but I do believe that is the number. But check it out. Then we'll talk about what benign neglect is.
Well, let me tell you something. If you wait conspiracy from others,
Oh, and this is before the brother Cato Amir. This was the brother Jamion Fowler on Twitter, who cornered Jim Clyburn back in 2020. And we'll get into the one with Cato after this clip.
It's mocked reparations as something that would never happen. If you wait conspiracy from others, reparations. So what you better do, but I'm going to talk enough of that. Why you touch me? Okay, all right. I'm going to leave this one. Cut the check. Tell Nancy Pelosi to cut the check. Yeah. You do that for me at the treasurer? Cut the check. Somebody better cut the check. Reparations are owed, sir. ADOS. You're not going to run away from this issue, Congressman. Oh, I'm not trying to run away from it. It seems like you are. You're walking away right now. Cut the check, Congressman. Cut the check. ADOS, you're not going to walk away from this, Congressman. ADOS is everywhere. Cut the check. Like I said, in the spirit of the good brother Jamion Fowler, who is also another South Carolina native, who during the Democratic primaries was able to corner basically, I believe, almost every candidate besides Joe Biden. I don't believe he was able to actually catch up with Joe Biden, but was able
reparations for American descendants of slavery. Most of them pivoted to they support H.R. 40. And H.R. 40 is only a bill that would develop a commission to study reparations. But as you'll see, this brother presses Jim Clyburn with some very valid points. Jim Clyburn is stumbling and bumbling, and he pretty much has nowhere to go. I want to get this video out. Go ahead and share this video on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, wherever you have a presence. Go ahead and get this video out. Go ahead and click that like button and subscribe to Dirty Laundry Media. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Go ahead and check out the video. I'm signing off, and I'll see you on the other side. This is Bill Money from Dirty Laundry Media. You have a great evening.
Thank you, Congressman Clyburn, for coming to us from the politicians that say they need to speak for us, never want to speak to us. So I think you should thank them for being here. Congressman Clyburn, I love this handout, but it's missing one thing, and I'm going to try not to get emotional, but I want to read it. In 2019, the average, I know you know these statistics, the average wealth of the average white American family is $188,000. For Black American families, it's only $24,000. Now I'm done, okay? 80% of rural land, Black land ownership, has been lost since 1969. A white high school dropout has more wealth than a Black college graduate. Per the Accountable USA and the Food and Research Action Center, your district, the district I've grown up in, is the sixth poorest district in the United States of America, which is South Carolina District 6. Now, there's a quote, and I think that's not too much. There's a quote that says, I do not, they back it up with census data, but there's a quote that says, I do not buy the concept popular in the 1960s, which said, we have suppressed the Black man for 300 years, and the white man is now far ahead in the race for everything our society offers. In order to even the score, we must now get the Black man a head start, and that's to even the race. I don't buy that. I'll be damned if I paid for the sins of my forefathers. I was responsible for my forefathers. I was responsible for now. Now, hearing that quote, you might think I'm talking about Donald Trump. Well, that was Joe Biden. Now, Congressman, you said we know Joe and Joe knows us. And Joe Biden told us that he would have our back. But since being in office, Joe Biden has signed executive action for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. He has signed executive action for LGBTQ citizens. He has done executive action for Native Americans. But where's the executive action for Black Americans? Now, what a lot of people may not realize, I don't know if I just learned this, 20, Joe Biden got in office and he repealed a lot of stuff Donald Trump did. So a man who said he was concerned with the sins of forefathers, he's so repealing past sins of Donald Trump. But what about the biggest sin and the original sin this country committed, which was the brutal enslavement of my people? And after slavery, the race massacres, the violent discrimination that kept us in poverty, the land theft, okay? We, Black Americans, now, since 1865, Black Americans own only 0.5 wealth in America. Today, we own less than 3%. Since slavery, not much has changed. Joe Biden could easily do executive action and bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, whose job was to hold all disparity between Black Americans, who are descendants of freedmen, and white Americans. Joe Biden was just a stroke of a pen and started a mission to study reparations and implement them. You are our representative. We can't show up everywhere. People say, well, when we organize, we can organize since the 1500s. These other groups come in like Asian Americans, and within a few months, they get bills for them. It's your job to speak up for us. So you said we know Joe and Joe knows us. How Jim Clyburn, that you cannot support reparations, and you cannot push Joe Biden to at least bring back the 3 new bill to close all disparities between white Americans and black Americans. We talk about a crisis at the border. What about the crisis in black America? That was considered the crisis in black America was intentional external. So America was built on our backs. We still pull this country up on our backs. It's broken every bone in our body. And we have big piece up in our stomach. Okay, well, can you please explain why President Bush jumped in on executive action in his policy for your people, black Americans? That's my question. Ryan James. Because we haven't seen it. I see you on the news and you talk about every other issue, AAPI, LGBTQ. I watch you. I follow you. Just to see if you're going to mention black American issues and you don't. The HR 40, yes.
They always harp on HR 40. HR 40 is trash. Have you ever heard of HR 40? Yeah. Coon for 30 years.
Cut the check.
Cut that check, homie. So that was Brother Cato Amir. Again, I am Cato Amir on Twitter. Give that brother a follow. And this next video is from a brother named Tyrone Polk. And what's his handle on Twitter if I have it? Because we're active. You know, they always say you got to organize, you got to get active, you got to let them know what you want, you got to let them know what you need, you got to vote. If you don't vote, you don't have a say. Well, shit, we've been voting our asses off forever. And if we weren't able to vote, we were damn sure dying to get the right to vote. So y'all need to go ahead with all this. Y'all need to vote. And then when it's time to vote and we talk about what we need, you know, based on whatever boogeyman is in office, we have to set our needs aside to help these people get whatever boogeyman out the way. You know, that's what it was with Trump. You know, besides the fact that our needs and our justice claims are bipartisan, meaning it doesn't matter who addresses them. It could be a Democrat, it could be a Republican, it could be an independent, it could be a marshmallow, it could be a Martian. It really makes no difference. You know? But we only want to talk to one side of the aisle, and they love it. Both sides love it. The Democrats love it because they know that we're going to vote for them no matter what, and they can take us for granted, pander to us with empty and hollow symbolism, throw us a holiday like Juneteenth, which is, in my, you know, I don't want to talk bad about it because some people actually hold that day dear, but to me, it's a huge slap in the face. And again, you know, I'm a Northerner. As they call me in the South, I'm a Yankee. I didn't really hear about Juneteenth until I came down south. And I thought it was just something that they celebrated in Texas. Since Texas was the last state in the Union to let the slaves know that they were actually free for 2 whole years. And we're going to make a holiday out of that. The weirdest shit we celebrate. And, you know, before that, Jim Clyburn was talking about making Lift Every Voice and Sing the national. They should have just threw that in just for good measure. Juneteenth and Lift Every Voice and Sing. You got a national holiday and you got a national anthem. But look, we're not going to cut y'all a check because y'all just going to go spend that check on Jordans, Shit like that. And this is black people saying that. So this is black folks saying that. But again, this is Brother Tyrone R. Polk. And he posted his exchange. And you can follow Brother Polk on Twitter at Emerald TYNY27. Emerald TYNY27. So check out this exchange. And if you're in the building, go ahead and smash that like button while you're here. And help get my algorithm popping. So this video picks up where the last video left off. That brother, I am Kato on Twitter. Definitely did a great job of pressing Clyburn on the reparations and tangible specific policies for the slave. I ran across this video after I saw that. I probably would have included it. This comes from a brother named Tyrone Polk Davis. I'll catch him on Twitter at Emerald Ty NY27. And he also had the opportunity to ask James Clyburn some questions concerning HR. Go ahead and fast forward this for you. Commission a study. And a pioneers who has since passed away. And Sheila Jackson Lee is now quarterback that movement. Sheila Jackson Lee. Champions what he calls pure reparations with direct payments as part of any reparations program. So yeah, that is one of the things that it must prioritize direct payments to eligible recipients, and it must give. And let me just say something, people. When it comes to these elected officials, these do-nothing Democrats that you all continue to elect year after year, to term after term, to do absolutely nothing specifically for the Black community, but to always advocate for every other group, whether they be an actual legitimate group or not, and that means illegal immigrants. And shout out to the Supreme Court for letting us know what we knew all along, that DACA is and was illegal. I just hope that stands, and it's not a xenophobic thing. It's just about resources. These are resources that are limited, and my group has not gotten their fair share. And if I continue to go to the store for you, or if you continue to send me to the store, if you give me $20 to go to the store with a list of goods, and I come back without your goods and without your money, and I tell you, hey, we'll get them next time. And I come back the next time to get 20 more of your dollars to go to the store, and I come back again and tell you, hey, I'm sorry, I don't have your goods and I don't have your money, but we'll get them next time. You're not going to go for that too many times. That's why I know that Black people don't really value the vote. We don't really know how to use it. We don't know how to be stingy with it. We don't know how to bargain with it, use it for leverage. We don't know any of these things. We just know how to let everybody come to the barbecue. All they have to have is a bottle of hot sauce in their purse and some Chuck Taylors on their feet, or maybe some Timberlands. But I digress. Let's continue. Maximum discretion on few things a commission any groups per year. I found that economists information in order to motivate, show up to meetings.
America's mostly work.
This is Bill Money signing off. Dirty Laundry Media.
Real quick, it's a real thing. That's
Smash that like button.
But statistics shows that of us have a whole bunch of debt, right? The other 80% of Black Americans mostly work in the service economy. So it's good for HBCUs, but the rest of Black America is pretty much being starved out. That's all I'm going to say. And on top of that, with HR 40, we were on something called Fix HR 40.
And for Black people who don't believe that illegal immigration and immigration as a whole hurts the Black community the most, and it hurts the job market as a whole, get your heads out your asses, do some research. Stop following along with agendas that do not benefit you, do not benefit your group. Stop following the Democratic talking points when they don't reflect the agenda that you need to focus on. But again, I digress.
But we put pressure on all of our congressional leaders to get HR 40 to the floor. We sat there for about 10 hours and watched that whole judiciary process. We saw it played out. Nancy Pelosi can bring that to the floor anytime she wants. We have been monitoring HR 40 since it's been stalled out for the most part.
Both.
What we're trying to say, sir, is that because of public pressure, so for history, right? HR 40, right, was introduced by John Connors in 1987. It sat dormant for over 30 years, right? No. So, yes, it did, sir. Yes, it did.
Every year.
He did introduce it every year, but it never got passed. We're talking about something like
it never got any support.
This thing never passed at all. Now there is public sentiment. There's energy behind it, right? The CBC just they did a Twitter poll. They asked us, what do you prefer? Do you prefer? Hold a second. Sir, it's all due respect. No emotion in this. We're just concerned. We're just highly concerned because by 2050, Black American wealth is going to be at zero. Meanwhile, other groups' wealth are going upward while our wealth is deteriorating. So we're just highly concerned. That's it. Right. We just want a better quality of life for ourselves and our children. I have 2 children myself. The tax credit is great. It's great. But after the tax child credit, it's like that's just paying the bills and that's it.
Jim Clyburn does not care about you or your children. Okay, man.
Thank you so much.
I'm so rude. So rude. And I'm not going to answer this one, but any other questions? I'm not going to answer your question either. So this is what we are. This is where we are in July of 2021. Joe, we know Joe and Joe knows us. Joe Biden said he's going to have our backs because we had his backs. When his campaign was at its lowest, we swooped in like we love to do. And we saved Joe Biden's campaign, and Jim Clyburn led the way. And this is how he repays you. He turns his back on the most pertinent question of 2019, 2020, and 2021. And that is the issue of reparations for American descendants of slavery. Jim Clyburn is full of shit, and he's not a serious person. Indeed, Mr. Robert Stokes, illegal immigration is killing Black people's progress, and it has been since 1965. When the Immigration Act of 1965 was passed on the coattails of the 1964 Immigration Civil Rights Act for Black people. And I believe that was strategic, that they knew that to offset the progress that would be realized by the Civil Rights Act, that they knew that if they inject immigration into the picture as they had after the Civil War with European immigration, which flooded the side of the job market. 100 years later, they used immigration from Mexico, Central and South America to drown us out. Also, immigration from Africa, Europe, Black Brits in particular, Africans from the continent, all to dilute our specific brand of Blackness and replace it with what Yvette Carnell calls flat blackness, in which skin color is the total sum of your experience and your identity, no matter where you're from. But we've learned that blackness is not flat, and that your lineage is going to determine your politics and is going to determine your standing. And we've watched as immigrant Blacks have been allowed to come to the United States. They've been allowed to flourish without the historical degradation, the accrued disadvantage of 400 years of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, lynching, peonage, you name it, mass incarceration, prison industrial complex. All of these industries have been built on the backs of Native Blacks. And when immigrants from the diaspora come, they can feign solidarity, but the proof is in the pudding. You know, we've been played against each other. Now you can say that you didn't know and you went along and go along and get along out of ignorance, but there comes a point in time when you even in your ignorance, you must take responsibility. But not to get off the point. American descendants of slavery, a specific group with a specific lineage, with a specific and unique history in the United States political system. We have a specific justice claim that is not extended beyond the bounds of our geography and our experience. The American melting pot pretty much defined Adolph's experience. You know, I traced my earliest ancestor back to the year 1818, Monmouth, New Jersey. And this was about 10 or so years after slavery was officially outlawed or abolished in New Jersey. And, you know, through correlation of data in geographical location, it is highly probable that line, well, not that particular line, the one from 1818 in Monmouth, New Jersey, and then my next oldest ancestor I traced to 1829 in South River District in Virginia. And through correlation of data and facts, that area was settled by an ex-Revolutionary War brigadier general named Robert Porterfield. And once he retired from the military, he bought a swath of land and he named it Soldier's Retreat. And again, his name was Brigadier General Robert Porterfield. And again, my ancestor who I traced was born in 1829 in that same area. And his name was Israel Porterfield. And he was listed on the census in I believe it was the 1870 census as mulatto. So we haven't been able to, pinpoint, but we do believe that, Robert Porterfield owned slaves. Brigadier General Robert Porterfield owned slaves, of which my ancestor Israel Porterfield was more than likely one of them until 1863 emancipation. So unless you can trace your lineage in the United States back pre-Civil War, pre-emancipation, then when it comes to the reparations piece, you really don't have a claim. And I can trace quite a few of my strands back prior to that time. Again, 1818, Monmouth, New Jersey, 1829, South River District, Virginia. Now, had we had a normal experience, Then throughout the generations, my ancestors would have been able to amass wealth. We would have been able to preserve our history, pass down our wealth and knowledge. And, our inequities wouldn't, would hopefully would not be as stark as they are now as far as the black-white wealth gap. But that did not happen. We were bounded, we were pillaged, we were held back physically. Once we were free, we were held back through legislation, policy, violence. Now, we had a moment in time where we made some great gains over those first 100 years of being free. But slightly after that, I'm going to hit you with a memo really quickly. Give me a moment. And this was a memo to the president back in 1970, and I believe that was Richard Nixon, from a man named Patrick Moynihan. Daniel Patrick Moynihan. So let me get this up on the screen. And we're going to talk about exactly what is benign neglect. And this is straight from the horse's mouth. And again, this was January 16th, 1970, a memorandum for the president. It reads, as the new year begins, it occurs to me that you might find useful a general assessment of the position of Negroes at the end of the first year of our administration and of the decade in which their position has been the central domestic political issue. The decade in which their position has been the central domestic political issue. In quantitative terms, which are reliable, the American Negro is making extraordinary progress. In political terms, somewhat less reliable, this would also appear to be true. In each case, however, there would seem to be countercurrents that pose a serious threat to the welfare of the blacks and the stability of the society, white and black. Number one, employment and income. The 1960s saw the great breakthrough for blacks. A third, 32% of all families of Negro and other races earned $8,000 or more in 1968, compared in constant dollars with 15% in 1960. The South is still a problem. Slightly more than half, 52% of the Negro population lived in the South in 1969. There, only 19% of families of Negro and other races earned over $8,000. Young Negro families are achieving income parity with young white families. Outside the South, young husband-wife Negro families have 99% the income of whites. For families headed by male age 25 to 34, the proportion was 87%. Thus, it may be this ancient gap is finally closing. Income reflects employment, and this changed dramatically in the 1960s. Blacks continued to have twice the unemployment rates of whites, but these were down for both groups. In 1969, the rate for married men of Negro and other races was only 2.5%. Teenagers, on the other hand, continued their appalling rates with 24.4% in 1969. Black occupations improved dramatically. The number of professional and technical employees doubled in the period 1960 to 1968. This was 2.5 times the increase for whites. In 1969, Negro and other races provided 10% of the other than college teachers. This is roughly their proportion of the population, 11%. Education. In 1968, 17% of Negro children 3 and 4 years old were enrolled in school, compared to 15% of white children. 45% of Negroes 18 and 19 years old were in school, almost the equal of the white proportion of 51%. Negro college enrollment rose 85% between 1964 and 1968, by which time there were 434,000 Negro college students. The total full-time university population of Great Britain is 200,000. Educational achievement should not be exaggerated. Only 16% of Negro high school seniors have verbal test scores at or above grade level. But Blacks are staying in school. Female-headed families. This problem does not get better, it gets worse. In 1969, the proportion of husband-wife families of Negro and other races declined once again, this time to 68.7%. The illegitimacy ratio rose once again, this time to 29.4% of all live births. The white ratio rose more sharply, but was still only 4.9%. Increasingly, the problem of Negro poverty is the problem of the female-headed family. In 1968, 56% of Negro families with income under $3,000 were female-headed. In 1968, for the first time, the number of poor Negro children in female-headed families was greater than the number in male-headed families. And this seems like they were highlighting some negative trends that they wanted to continue and some positive trends in which they wanted to put an end to. This is the Matrix. Social pathology. The incidence of antisocial behavior among young Black males continues to be extraordinarily high. Apart from white racial attitudes, this is the biggest problem Black Americans face. And in part, it helps shape white racial attitudes. So they're saying it's a catch-22. White racial attitudes leads to antisocial behavior. The antisocial behavior reinforces the negative attitudes of the whites. Black Americans injure one another. Because Blacks live in de facto segregated neighborhoods and go to de facto segregated neighborhoods, schools, the socially stable elements of the Black population cannot escape the socially pathological ones. So we have two currents moving in opposite directions in the Black community. We have those that are socially stable, going with the flow, with the current mainstream society. Then we have the antisocial aspect, swimming in direct opposition to that socially stable element. It's going to create chaos in the community. Social engineering, people. Social engineering. These communities are built with a specific purpose in mind, and chaos is the main component, along with starvation of resources and the reinforcement of the negative pathologies. They use the media to do that. They use the media to tell us who we should want to be. And they make sure that those images are most degrading that they could possibly be. So again, Black Americans injure one another because Blacks live in de facto segregated neighborhoods and go to de facto segregated schools. The socially stable elements of the Black population cannot escape the socially pathological ones. Routinely, their children get caught up in the antisocial patterns of the others. When in Rome, do as the Romans. So you are familiar with the problem of crime. Let me draw your attention to another phenomenon exactly parallel and originating in exactly the same social circumstances: fire. Unless I mistake the trends, we are heading for a genuinely serious fire problem in American cities. In New York, for example, between 1956 and 1969, the overall fire alarm rate more than tripled, from 69,000 alarms to 240,000. These alarms are concentrated in slum neighborhoods, primarily black. In 1968, one slum area had an alarm rate per square mile 13 times that of the city as a whole. In another, the number of alarms has, on average, increased 44% per year for 7 years. I used to grow up and wonder why the Bronx was burnt down. We used to always say the Bronx was burnt down back in the 80s, and it was. The Bronx was horrible. So again, it seems that all of the social forces that were at play in the Black community were well documented. Um, they were fully aware of the negative and the positive. And it just seems as if, as I stated earlier, they sought to continue the trend of the negative and to reverse the trend of the positive. And again, this is the matrix, people. So we continue with the Benign Neglect Manifesto. So many of these fires are the result of population density, but a great many more or less are deliberately set. Slumlords, homeless people setting camp, trying to keep warm in the winters, might set a fire to keep warm and end up burning down the building. Slumlords, once they realize that they're no longer going to be able to make a profit from a property, they have insurance policies. Let's go ahead and torch it, cash out the insurance policy. But again, thus on Monday, welfare protesters set 2 fires in the New York State Capitol. Fires are, in fact, a leading indicator of social pathology for a neighborhood. They come first. Crime, and the rest follows. The psychiatric interpretation of fire setting is complex, but it relates to the types of personalities which slums produce. So slums produce a certain type of personality. A point of possible interest: fires in the Black slums peak in July and August. The urban riots of 1964, 1968 could be thought of as an epidemic condition of an endemic situation. Social alienation, number 5, with no real evidence, I would nonetheless suggest that a great deal of the crime, the fire setting, the rampant school violence, and other such phenomenon in the Black community have become quasi-politicized. Hatred, revenge against whites is now an acceptable excuse for doing what might have been done anyway. This is bad news for any society, especially when it takes form, which the Black Panthers seem to have adopted. This social alienation among the Black lower classes is matched and probably enhanced by a virulent form of anti-white feeling among portions of the large and prospering Black middle class. It would be difficult to overestimate the degree to which young, well-educated Blacks detest white America. The Nixon administration, as you have candidly acknowledged, The relation of the administration to the Black population is a problem. I think it ought also to be acknowledged that we are a long way from solving it. During the past year, intense efforts have been made by the administration to develop programs that will be of help to the Blacks. I dare say as much more or more time and attention goes into this effort in this administration than any in history, but little has come of it. There has been a great deal of political ineptness in some departments, and you have been the loser. I don't know what you can do about this, perhaps nothing, but I do have 4 suggestions. First, sometime early in the year, I would gather together the administration and officials who are most involved with these matters and talk about the subject a bit. There really is a need for a more coherent administration approach to a number of issues, which I can list for you if you like. Now we're going to get to the meat of the matter. So, second, the time may have come when the issue of race could benefit from a period of benign neglect. Subject has been too much talked about. The forum has been too much taken over to hysterics, paranoids, and boodlers on all sides. We may need a period in which Negro progress continues and racial rhetoric fades. The administration can help bring this about by paying close attention to such progress as we are doing, while seeking to avoid situations in which extremists of either race are giving opportunities for martyrdom, heroics, histrionics, or whatever. Greater attention to Indians, Mexican Americans, and Puerto Ricans would be useful. I repeat that part. Greater attention to Indians, Mexican Americans, and Puerto Ricans would be useful. The tendency to ignore provocations from groups such as the Black Panthers might also be useful. The Panthers were apparently almost defunct until the Chicago police raided one of their headquarters and transformed them into culture heroes for the white and Black middle class. Perhaps did not note on the society page of yesterday's Times that Mrs. Leonard Bernstein gave a cocktail party on Wednesday to raise money for the Panthers. Mrs. W. Vincent Astor was among the guests. Mrs. Peter Dushin, the rich blonde wife of the orchestra leader, was thrilled. "I've never met a Panther," she said. "This is a first for me." Third, we really ought to be getting on with research on crime. We just don't know enough. It is a year now since the administration came to office, committed to doing something about crime in the streets. But frankly, in that year, I don't see that we have advanced either our understanding of the problem or that of the public at large. This, of course, may only reveal my ignorance of what's going on. At the risk of indiscretion, may I put it that lawyers are not professionally well equipped to do much to prevent crime. Lawyers are not managers, and they are not researchers. The logistics, the ecology, the strategy, and tactics of reducing the incidence of certain types of behavior in large urban populations simply are not things lawyers think about often. We are never going to learn about crime in the laboratory sense, but we almost certainly could profit from limited, carefully done studies. And if you ever go to the NIH, the National Institutes of Health website, it's not only information about medical issues, issues in medicine or health or things of that nature. They have studies relating to crime, psychology, pathology. These are words that they use when they talk about groups. As you can see in the Moynihan report, this shit is real. They don't sit around twiddling their thumbs. Organization people. Organization. That is the main as the main detriment to the Black community, lack of organization. And that's the major strength of the dominant culture, organization. Motherfuckers is organized down to the goddamn wingtip, boy, I tell you. Gotta respect it. So let's see, where'd I left off? This Hennessy's kicking in. So we're never going to learn about crime, yada, 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 in a laboratory sense, but we almost certainly could profit from limited, carefully done studies. I don't think these will be done unless you express a personal interest. So he's just basically telling the president, look, if you want these studies, all you have to do is say so. You're the president. And this goes for Joe Biden. HR 40 is a bullshit study. If you really want that study, Joe Biden, as Brother Cato said, you could commission that study in the stroke of a pen. You passed about 1,000 executive orders, bro. You know, within the first 100 days of your administration, bro, you was passing out executive orders left and right. Everybody got one. You good at executive order. You good at executive order. You good at executive order. When it came to niggas, boy, niggas, you get a national bullshit holiday. Shut up. Niggas is getting kicked off TikTok, and I told y'all niggas stop fucking with TikTok. The fuck is TikTok? TikTok. Yeah, your time is almost up. And niggas on Instagram crying because TikTok is shutting them down. Won't let them post Black Lives Matter. Because them shits don't. So fourth, I digress. There is a silent Black majority as well as a white one. It is mostly working class as against lower middle class. It is politically moderate on issues other than racial equality, and shares most of the concerns of its white counterpart, the bootlick, the bootlick bud kisser. This group has been generally ignored by the government and the media. The more recognition we can give to it, the better off we shall be. I would take it, for example, that Ambassador Holland is a natural leader of this segment of the Black community, and there are others like him. So this was the beginning of the modern bootleg, butt-kissing gatekeeper. And I looked up the guy Holland. I can't remember his name off top. I'm not going to look him up right now. You guys can look him up if you like to. But they were discussing, hey, we need a prototype model Black who doesn't make any waves, who's not a race man like Jim Brown or Muhammad Ali, who goes along to get along, does what he's told to do, doesn't make a fuss like O.J. Simpson. And this is where we are now. And I believe there's even more than two pathologies in the Black community, but the antisocial and the well-adjusted still at odds to this day. So much so that we don't even want to be around each other. We mistrust each other. We cannot come together. So listen, people. Been on here for about an hour. And this Hennessy Mango cocktail is kicking in. So we're going to pick up this discussion at another date, another time. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in to Dirty Laundry Media. Again, this is Bill Money. I'm going to go ahead and sign off so I can go watch Power Book 2, Story of Canaan, until I fall asleep. I'll see you on the other side. Smash that like button if you haven't already subscribed. Please subscribe. Again, this is Bill Money signing off. Have a great evening.